begins at 3 Eastern time on Thursday. Already breaking news, fast and furious. And let's start right there with senior NBA insider Shams Charania, who's been a very busy man today. A little over an hour ago, breaking news on a trade. Shams, what do you have?
Hannah, so this is the first blockbuster of NBA trade deadline week. The Memphis Grizzlies have traded former Defensive Player of the Year Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz for a package of players that includes Walter Clayton Jr. and 3 first-round draft picks. And so the Jazz here, let's start with them. They're making a major swing in the Western Conference. Jaren Jackson now adds to a core of Lauri Markkanen, Keontae George, Walker Kessler. So this is a Jazz team that now Austin Ainge, their new head of basketball operations, Danny Ainge, their CEO, Ryan Smith, their owner. This is a big swing for them in the Western Conference as they try to turn the page and compete with some young talent. But the Grizzlies are now signaling a full rebuild around promising young players like Cedric Coward, like a Zach Edey, and they now have about a dozen first-round draft picks over the next 7 years that ties them with Oklahoma City and Brooklyn. And they also created a $28.8 million trade player exception. That's the largest in NBA history. So we saw Desmond Bane traded last offseason. Jaren Jackson Jr. now to start the trade deadline. And Ja Morant is waiting in the wings, potentially, as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were talking about, really, in the run-up to this deal. You mentioned all those first-round picks. That's 7 now from this trade for Jackson and Desmond Bane. All right, we'll get back to you in a sec, Shams. Full house here. We have Wendy, we have Bobby Marks, we have Chene, we have Iman Shumpert. Hey, everybody, y'all ready?
Let's go.
All right, let's go. Wendy, what are your thoughts about this deal?
Okay, Jaren Jackson was a player who was interested. A lot of teams were interested in here, and this is what they call in the business pre-agency. He has 4 years and $200 million left on his contract. The Jazz are taking that contract in and paying dearly for it, but now this sort of becomes their free agent move that they would have done with salary cap space next summer. And Lauri Markkanen, now you may say he's a 7-footer. How does this work? Lauri Markkanen can play small forward. In fact, when he started doing that in Cleveland as a 7-foot small forward, it sort of revitalized his career. I would believe that the Jazz would intend to re-sign Walker Kessler and have a giant, basically 3 7-footer front line with Jaren Jackson, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, and I suspect they will still be tanking to make sure they get the draft pick. They have the draft pick, and that is going to be the foundation of their rebuild.
Bobby, what do you think?
You know what? I go back to last January when Utah made a trade with Phoenix, under the radar trade. They basically took a quality over quantity approach. They traded 3 of their lesser firsts, and guess what they got? A 2031 unprotected first from Phoenix. And you know what happened? That trade got it over with that trade pick, they got over the finish line getting Jackson Jr. here. 3 first-round picks go to Memphis, as you mentioned, 12 over the next 7 years. Clearly a sign for this Grizzlies team that's rebuilding. And I give Utah credit. I mean, to go out there and make this type of deal, they wouldn't have been able to go out and get Jaren Jackson Jr. in free agency.
Tonight,
I give them more than credit. I have officially taken note of the Utah Jazz. No more rebuilding. Donovan Mitchell left in 2021, 2022 after that season. It took 4 years in the trenches, and now it looks like they're trying to climb their way out. And what I've noticed is that front line, because in the Western Conference, if you want to go to an NBA Finals, you have to go through Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama, Alperen Şengün, Rudy Gobert. So you need to have a stout front line, and I like the one that they've built or are building for the future.
Yeah, I love it. My favorite thing on paper to look at is Keontae George and Jaren Jackson together. You know, guys, I'm a fan of, at the end of the game, what are you guys going to do? I really like my chances with those two making decision-making. You got your Jamal Murrays and your Jokic's, and they just fit into that DNA. You got your guys that can come off pick and rolls and make you pay. It's hard to deal with at the end of games. I now like it for the future, and I'm not even mad at the rebuilding opportunity that the Grizzlies have here. I like what they're doing, too. We'll just see what happens with Ja Morant.
Yeah. More on Ja Morant. So what potentially does this mean?
So because, as you mentioned, they got 7 first-round picks for Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson. As I talked to executives around the league, they think that this changes what they can expect back in a Ja Morant trade. Instead of trying to trade Ja for as much value as they can, which, frankly, there's not as much value for Ja. That's why Bane and the Jackson have been traded first. They now, executives believe, can take on salary because they've offloaded this $200 million that they were owed to Jackson. They can sort of use Ja as a trade piece to balance out salary, take back bad money and receive assets for that. So I think they can have sort of fresh discussions with Ja Morant in trade negotiations, and that's, I think, why they did Jaren Jackson first to open that up between now and Thursday afternoon.
In the meantime, he's been injured. He hasn't been playing. And we have another deal. So let's go back to Shams Charania. There was another trade that has happened within the last hour, a 3-team deal. What can you tell us about that?
Is our senior NBA insider, Shams Charania. Okay, Shams, I'm told you got some breaking news in the NBA. Let the people know.
BC, this is our first blockbuster of trade deadline week. Jaren Jackson Jr., the 2-time All-Star with the Memphis Grizzlies, former Defensive Player of the Year award winner. He is being traded to the Utah Jazz for a package that includes Walter Clayton Jr., the former collegiate star at Florida, some veteran players, but most importantly, 3 first-round draft picks. And for Utah, this represents a major swing now. They're going to team up Jaren Jackson Jr. with Lauri Markkanen, Keontae George, who's been a breakout star this year, Walker Kessler. This is a deep team that they've got building there. And for Memphis, it's clear. This signals a full rebuild. They've got a few very promising players. You think about Cedric Coward, Zach Edey. This is a young team that's growing. They moved Desmond Bane last summer. Now Jaren Jackson Jr. We know they've been in trade talks around Ja Morant. And this Grizzlies organization has 13 future first-round draft picks that ties them with Brooklyn and Oklahoma City for the next 7 years. And they also, in this process, created the largest trade exception in NBA history at $28.8 million, which gives them some flexibility over the next year. But this is a massive deal for Utah. We're starting to see them now. Danny Ainge, Ryan Smith, their owner, and co. This is a big move for the Jazz.
Okay, so now let's go back to Memphis, because all we've heard really out of Memphis was Ja Morant. What does this mean for Ja Morant and him being traded?
The Grizzlies' conversations around Ja Morant and entertaining offers is continuing around the league. There's multiple teams with interest in Ja Morant. We've seen with Desmond Bane, and now with Jaren Jackson Jr., this is a Grizzlies organization that is prioritizing their young core. They had a few years of success here with Memphis, made some runs. This team looked like it had some promise, but they're now officially turning the page on this and stocking up with draft capital. But the Ja Morant trade conversations between now and Thursday's deadline are continuing to heat up and are continuing to on-go.
Okay, one of the things, all the other things that you also reported today was that the Clippers and the Cavaliers have been discussing a trade for James Harden. Where do we stand?
The Clippers and James Harden continue today to work on a resolution, a trade for him out of L.A. And the team that has come up with the most serious interest as of right now is the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the sides have been discussing a deal centered around a swap between Harden and Garland. And the reason why this is even a thing, because the Clippers, they would love to kind of keep it status quo right now, but James Harden has a mutual option in his contract for next season. And so it gives the sides the ability to sit down and see what's the future. And next season, a contract beyond next season is not promised for James Harden in LA. And so there's an unlikelihood there. So is there a beneficial path forward for both sides where the Clippers in this instance could get a young player like Darius Garland, and James Harden could land with a team where he might have a longer-term future and also compete for a championship in the Eastern Conference with Donovan Mitchell, with Evan Mobley. I'm told James Harden wants to go compete for a championship. That's what he views. This Clippers team obviously has come on strong the last couple months, this last month or so, but they're still a play-in team. James Harden wants to compete for a championship. This is very fluid today and tomorrow and into Thursday potentially.
Okay, it seems like everybody in the league is waiting on what's going to happen with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Where do things stand there with Giannis?
Bucks executives, ownership, they're all continuing to sift through the offers that are coming in. The 4 most aggressive suitors, Miami, Minnesota, New York, Golden State, those offers are continuing to come in. And, you know, they can take a deal potentially that is pick heavy, like the Golden State Warriors. They could take a player-centric deal that has a blue-chip young player with the Timberwolves. They could also get a little bit of both with the Miami Heat or the New York Knicks. Which path do you go down? And do the Bucks just decide we'll take this into the offseason if our price point is not met? That's still very much on the table between now and Thursday. There's risk and reward with all that, though. In the offseason, Giannis will have 1 year left on his deal. That means for a player of that caliber, he's going to have a lot of say-so, be able to dictate a lot when it comes to his future. So there's a lot that the Bucks and their officials are sifting through today and tomorrow.
Again, the NBA trade deadline is Thursday. If any more news breaks within the hour, Shams is here. He will deliver it for us.